everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to day 2 of the 2019 Digital Marketing Planning Bootcamp, your guide to the ideal contractor marketing budget. I'm really excited to be your host today. My name is Jenny. Steve is here as well, and he'll be helping us out with any of your questions throughout the webinar. I'll be going through a little intro, and then Bob Sheehan will take you through his presentation, and then at the end, we'll answer any of your questions that you might have. In case you're not as familiar with Surefire and who we are, we're located in Northern Virginia, and we help small businesses drive visibility through all channels on the web so that they can continue to grow their business with ease. Our mission here is to educate businesses on a variety of topics to help you succeed and to help the industry grow. We want to know who you are too, so let us know where you're joining us from today. And you can do that using the chat box, which is going to be on the right-hand side of your screen. A few quick reminders before I pass over to Bob. You will get the recording of this chat next week. And like I mentioned earlier, you can ask us questions, make comments, etc. in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. Because you're on the webinar with us right now, you've earned 1 ticket to be placed into the drawing for the Google Home Hub that we'll be giving away at the end of tomorrow's session. If you attend all 3 sessions, you'll get 3 ticket entries, which will give you a better chance at winning. So today we have Bob Sheehan, a digital marketing expert that has worked in the home improvement space for about 25 years, joining us. He's got a really great presentation on creating the ideal marketing budget for your business. So with that, I will pass it on over to Bob.
Thank you, and welcome everybody to the webinar. Happy afternoon. It's a good topic for today to talk about budgeting, since I understand most of us didn't win the $1.6 billion Mega Millions last night. So we have to keep working and have to keep making sure that the money we spend on marketing generates a return. So today's talk is all about how to plan and execute an effective marketing budget, and basically how to set things up so that you can make the decisions that need to be made in the right way, or in a way that will be effective at driving down your cost per lead and your cost per acquisition. So just a few numbers to kind of put things in perspective about what's going on these days online. The average person goes online about 100 times a day. That's a number that we get from Google. And it's, people basically live online. Everybody is on a phone or on an iPad, or somehow interacting with the online world pretty much constantly. And the other thing that I think is important to think about as we manage people's digital footprints, and as we talk about lead flow online, is the idea that you don't have very much time to handle a customer who comes to you that way. We have many clients and have websites that generate lots of leads, and typically you got about 2 minutes, right? If a customer if you don't respond to a customer, and if you don't have interaction with that customer within a couple of minutes, the opportunity of that turning into a sale drops dramatically. What we find actually is when you go beyond a few minutes and you get into the 5 and 10 minute area, your chance of actually talking to that customer decreases dramatically. So it's very, very important that we understand how people interact online, what kind of things they do. So looking forward, trying to figure out where this is all going. We're talking a lot about voice right now, because the current thinking around all of this is that something like half of all search will be voice search by 2020. That's a little over a year from now. We're already seeing that happen. It's moving in that direction now. And right now, every day, 5.5 billion searches happen online using voice, right? 50% of search phrases have 4 or more words. So we talk about long tail a lot, and we talk about kind of how people search with phrases and how people search with language, and the more we go to voice, the more that is part of the deal. So we got to be careful that we understand how people search and what kinds of phrases they use, so that we can optimize our digital footprints for that. And the review piece is really important too. We have to remember that something like 20% or a little bit more than 20% of customers, they'll tell you they won't even buy from you if you have a negative review at all. And when you get into 2, 3, 4 negative reviews, you've really got to make that a small number by getting getting more positive reviews to kind of wash that clean, right? So reviews is a very important piece. We have to think about it a lot, and we have to make sure that we, handle that properly. There's a customer journey that's happening now, that we have to be aware of. It's very, very important. It's a multi-channel customer journey, right? They go through this explore phase. They find things. They get interested in things that they want to see. They compare, right? Customers look at options. They look at different things that they can potentially do. Then they make a purchase, and then they talk about their experience. And so what we try to do is to be in all of these places all at once. And as you're budgeting and marketing for a services company, or really for any company, you need to be thinking about all of these places along the way. The customers are going to see your brand and interact with you, so that you can kind of be there. Because typically what Google will tell us is that by the time a customer comes to you as a form submission or a phone call, they've seen your brand or interacted with it 12 or 13 times, right? So that's a number that kind of says, okay, I need to be out there, right? I just can't be in a couple of different places, and I just can't manage my website, for instance, alone. I've got to make sure that directory listings, for instance, or I've got to be thinking about direct mail, or I've got to be thinking about multi-channel marketing, so that I can get customers to see me a lot of different places before they become a lead. 59% of home services customers make a decision based on where you are, right? They definitely want to know that you're close. We see that trend more and more, and as the online search world becomes more geographic and more location based, we see that mattering more and more and more, right? 56% of people will tell you they check your website before they do business with you. I actually think it's probably closer to 85 or 90, but 56% is what the surveys say. I think that's probably low. And then 73% will tell you that if the website lacks info, if there's not a complete story on the website, if it's not kind of satisfying and give somebody an idea of what they're really trying to do, then they just go look for another one. What we've got here is a customer who's capable and has at their fingertips the ability to make a lot of comparisons and to go a lot of different ways. And so we have to make sure that they see us in a lot of different places, and that they get the right message in those places that converts them to a potential customer for us, right? So you've got to be in the right place. You got to reach the right customers at the right moments. When they're in the research phase, you've got to be able to be there in a way that gives them the kind of information they're looking for. And when they're ready to make an outreach, right, when they're ready to call or make a phone call, you've got to be there in the right way as well. So the idea would be to try to be there when the homeowner needs you. And to do that, we've got to manage this marketing budget, and we've got to kind of make sure that we're online and offline in a lot of different places in a cost-effective way, so that no matter where a customer looks for you, they're going to find you in that right moment, right, in that right place that they need you in, right? So how do you know if your marketing is really working? That's always the big question. I talk to a lot of people who come to us as new customers, and that's a question I get all the time. How do I know if this website's working? How do I know if my direct mail is working, or whatever? And I've got to try to figure out how all this is working so that I can make decisions, right? And so we've got these challenges. We've got in marketing in general, and in lead generation, direct response marketing, we've got some things that we have to think about, right? All leads are not equal. Some leads are better than others, right? We have to understand the difference between some kinds of leads and other kinds of leads, and make the right decisions based on the outcome. Attribution. There's a big challenge out there, and we struggle with it here. It's something that I know contractors deal with all the time, about attribution. How do I know where this lead came from? How do I know that this customer who put a form into my website didn't start out as seeing my TV commercial, or see me on a billboard or whatever? How do I figure all that out? We've got a lot of marketing vendors in the world, and I'm going to show you a chart in a few minutes that'll talk about just how many options there are, and it's staggering how many decisions you have to make to try to get this right. We know that weather and economy are a factor. These are definitely cyclical businesses that rise and fall with the economy, and we have weather that seasonality that matter. Certainly, we do more business in the summer than we do in the winter, and that all factors into how we need to budget and how we need to kind of spend all this money to get the right ROI. But the overall thing that I think about is that measuring ROI is confusing. It can be difficult to get it right, and so having a system and having a way to think about it, I think is a really good way to kind of go through this and understand what's going on. So budgeting media, and to me, budgeting equals tracking. If I just have money that I spend and I know where I spent it, but I don't know how it came out, then I can't possibly spend it better next time. All right. If I've got $10 spent in 5 places, but I don't track which 3 of those didn't generate any business, I'm never going to be able to cut those. I'm going to have to spend that money again because I need to make sure that I hit the places that did send business my way. So the overall thinking that I have around budgeting always starts with tracking. I want to know if I spend $1, what was the result of that? How much did I get back? Did I get the return that I was looking for? And if I did, how much of that can I spend next year or next month? And how do I kind of figure that out? So we do it on a spreadsheet. We have lots of lots of media choices, right? Email, websites, the radio, TV, lots of choices. And depending on the stage that your business is at, how big you might be, maybe you're not doing all of these, but you certainly, if you've got a reasonable sized budget, you're doing a good number of these. And so it starts with how do you put it all in one place, right? Get started by putting all your stuff. What are you doing? I'm spending $15,000 on direct mail. I've got a radio budget. I'm spending some money on a website. I've got a Better Business Bureau spend that's going on, and maybe I'm on billboards, right? And so I've listed all my media, and I know how much money I'm spending there, and that helps me to understand what's on the table and what kind of decisions that I need, right? And then from there I go to sales, right? And I need to know how much sales I got from each thing I spent, right? Each kind of money event that's there. What did I get for sales, and how much did a lead cost me? Because if I know those 2 things, then I can understand the effectiveness of each thing that I did, right? So we kind of extend that spreadsheet, and we take that media from the first 2 columns where I spent X amount of dollars on each different thing, and now I can add sales and ad cost, and I can really do some calculations here against what I spent versus what I got and how much a lead cost me. And those are the numbers that I need to understand, right? If I know, for instance, that I got $200,000 from spending $15,000 in direct mail, and I have a pretty good feel that I could do that again, then I know that an ad cost of 7.5% is on the low side of what I do. I'm probably going to want to keep that. Whereas if I spend $8,000 on postcards and I only got $28,000 in sales, so my ad cost there is 28.5%. That's not anywhere near as profitable. My lead cost is really high there. So I'm kind of thinking, that might be someplace to look, right? Someplace to think about, right? So when you think about this, right, and we get back to the tracking question, but how do I know what happened here, right? Did I guess? A lot of times when I was, in the business and when I was doing this, in agencies, customers would very much guess. They would ask people, you talk on the phone, the customer would call you and you would ask the customer how they got to you. And most of the time they really don't know. But guessing is obviously not as good as really understanding what's going on. And so the way to think about this is tracking leads aggressively, right? If you're constantly thinking about how can I determine what happened on that particular lead and where it came from, and you've got a culture around understanding what that spend got you and how that lead worked for you, then you're going to be in a better place than somebody who kind of, I ask a little bit here and I kind of think about that a little bit there and I'm not sure, but I guess. That's not going to be as good. right? So aggressive tracking would look like, a separate phone number on everything you do. How many tracking numbers should you have? You probably should have one for every different kind of thing that you're doing. Leads from websites. We want to source to the origin. And what I mean by that is if a customer started in, for instance, a display ad, and they came to you as a form submission on your website, you want to know that that was a website form submission that originated in display, right? You don't just care that it's a website form submission because it might have been an organic, the customer might have just literally stumbled on your website and came that way. But if they came from display, you spent money to get them there, and you want to know that that money generated that customer. And so sourcing back to the origin is really important. We talk about asking customers what made them call you. I think that's something to do. I think that should also be considered next to the other ways that you track, right? I would not recommend letting customers tell you these things and then believing them over the other things that you've got in place, right? If you've got a tracking number that says a customer called you from direct mail A, and they tell you that they saw you on a billboard, I would believe the phone number before I'd believe the customer. And if you do that, if you use the mechanical methods of tracking more than the anecdotal ways to do this, I think you'll be in a better place. And then we use UTM codes, and we do this a lot at Surefire with customers who are doing lots of different things, where you can put these tracking codes. Google provides us with a way to create these codes that will then land in your analytics and in your Surefire cloud that we have that shows you all of this stuff. It will track these things into campaigns. So you can go to the campaign section of analytics and see, here's how my Better Business Bureau campaign is working, because that has a particular tracking code on it. Or you can see how my display advertising campaign is working differently from my search campaign on pay-per-click, or the different kind, maybe I have a window campaign going on and I want to track that differently than my siding campaign. I can use UTM codes to do that and get that separation. So now I know when those customers come in and I've tracked them to these different campaigns, I can understand whether my pay-per-click is working better for windows or better for siding. And if that's the case, I can then make decisions going forward about whether I should add money to one or the other, or take it away. Phone calls. We have the ability, and we have customers who do this with us outside of the internet. Where, for instance, if you do business with Surefire, you're going to get a tracking phone number on your website. That's part of the program. And the reason we do that is we want to be able to track the phone calls that come from that effort, right? We want to give you that ROI attribution. We have customers who will buy 10 or 15 other phone numbers from us and put their direct mail through that same system, and put their their Better Business Bureau ad, or their whatever. Pay-per-click is a separate phone number. And that way you can see inside our platform not only the online things that you do, but you can track the phone calls that come from the offline side. And when you do that, you can not only hear those phone calls and kind of use them as a training tool, but you can break it out and you can understand how many calls did I get from the $10,000 I spent on direct mail last month, or how many phone calls do I get annually from my placement on directory listings, whatever. And when you do that, you've got certainty, right? You know exactly how that stuff is working, because the only way a customer could call you is if they saw that thing, right? If they had that direct mail piece in their hand, they saw you on that website, they used that phone number, boom, right? You're guaranteed that that's how it came to you. So I think that's a very important way to think about this, is phone calls and form submissions, right? Make those separations as much as you can, so that you can then attribute back to the original money that you spent and get what get the ROI against that thing that you had, right? So you'll know exactly how it worked. Website leads. We use different subject lines, for instance, on pay-per-click versus on organic. So we know when a lead comes to you that it came from a paid effort, and we help customers to put that in that money bucket so they can then make that evaluation against that spend. UTM codes we already talked about, but referral sources, different places that things come from. It's just an extended URL that you give, so that when you create that link and it comes back to you, that it will land in that campaign bucket, and you can then see how much traffic did I get from that thing I did, or how many leads did I get, and was it worth it? And here's another thing that I think is really, really important, and I see a lot of this when I talk to people, is there may be one or two people inside the company who know how this works and how it was set up, and understand how to tell when a lead comes in, what to do with it. It needs to be widespread, right? You got to teach other people how you do this too, so that when they're sitting in the chair for a day, or when somebody goes on vacation, or some other thing happens where somebody picks up a phone and they need to be able to attribute a lead source to that lead, that they know how to do it. So socializing this whole setup that you've got, and socializing the methods that you use to track these leads, is going to be very important, and will allow you that when you get to next December, right, that you're able to sit back and say, okay, here's what I have, right? I know how many phone calls I got for everything I did. I know how many leads, form submissions. I know how all that worked. And all you got to do is bring it into a format where you can look at it all, and then you can, then you can make those decisions. So, we've already talked about the whole customer piece. I have personal experience around this where, we've tried to track things this way, and the bottom line is customers really don't worry about this too much. They're not concerned with how they saw you. If you ask them the question, they're going to give you some answer that kind of they think is right, but usually it's marginally reliable, right? It's not the same as, I have a phone number on this thing, and the only way they could have called me was if they had that thing in their hand. Then right? You get that attribution certainty. Whereas on the customer, when you're just asking, that usually doesn't work too well. And then training the staff, right? We want to make sure that everybody knows what every kind of lead looks like, right? How do you put a lead source on something? How does it work into the CRM when you're going into Market Sharp or Improve It 360 or any of these CRMs that you use? How do I tell the system what kind of lead this is, right? We want to make sure that everybody in the company who might ever do that understands it, knows what a lead looks like, get them well versed in how that works, and then you've got that lead certainty. Because imagine if you're a $200,000 a month business, right? You're doing $2.5 million a year, and at $200,000 a month, maybe you have one sale, right, or two sales that are $25,000 or $40,000, right? That could be 40% of your sales. If you get the lead source wrong on that, that could be 40% of your sales that is in the wrong place. And if it's in the wrong place, you're not going to be able to make proper decisions on which media, drove that lead to you, right? So with that, we'll take a little break, have a little glass of water here, and come back in just a second.
Okay, thank you so much, Bob. That was a lot of really good information, and like you said, time to take a quick little break. So Steve is about to launch a poll where you all can select to have a private one-on-one call with one of our digital marketing experts, and they'll be able to give you an inside look at the Surefire Local Marketing Cloud and show you specifically 3 to 4 tactics that can help you improve your online presence and also help you with your marketing budget. So let us know if either of the days work, and if neither of them work, just select please email me to schedule a call, and we will be in touch. It's a really great opportunity for you to see how partnering with a digital marketing company can make a huge improvement in your marketing efforts. For example, Surefire Local helps you multiply your local marketing efforts by helping you see and strengthen all of your online activities from one single platform. And that's going to be things like your SEO, your online ads, reviews, local listings, and social media, and more. And if you're already a current customer, you can reach out to your coach, and they'll be able to help you further if you have any additional questions. Okay, so we will get the poll all closed up and send it back over to Bob.
All right, very good. Thanks, Jenny. And I will continue here. All right, so you have last year's data, right? Let's say you get to right about now. I mean, a lot of people are beginning to do this now for 2018 and looking forward into 2019. And you've got last year's data. Maybe you've got 2 years, right? Usually, like to think about having a couple of years so you can, smooth out some of the ebbs and flows that might happen on account of weather or, some big event that might have happened and that moved the numbers, right? And, so sometimes I've seen, we've taken 2 years or 3 years and put them all together, and you kind of get a month-to-month flow of what's going on. Then what, right? So you've got lead source statistics, and I usually start ranking them by numbers of leads, right? So where do I get the most leads? In this example, we've got a website that's, we spent $30,000 on it over the course of the year, generated $400,000 in sales at 350 leads. And next, you can see you've spent, in some cases, lots of money on some of these things, but not as much came from them. For instance, you've got 15,000 on a direct mail program here with 100 leads, and on the radio you might have spent 17,000 but only got 63 leads. So you've got a lead cost consideration over here, right, along with number of leads, and you can see it's kind of inverse, right? When you get a lot of leads, obviously your lead cost goes down, and when you get a few leads, your lead cost tends to go up. So we like to think about this in terms of, where am I getting the most impact? What's the thing that if I took it away, I really can't do without it, right? And we like to think of the website being the foundation of things, and we tend to see when we look at businesses like this that a large percentage of the leads. I have customers that will tell you that 60% of their leads come from their website. But certainly in this example, direct mail is something that's very important, right? It's 100 leads out of something like 500 or so, and so we want to be sure that we're accounting for the fact that even though something might have a low lead cost, that it actually has some impact on the business, right? And you want to start there and try to figure out, okay, what would be the thing that I need to kind of budget, first, right? So, now rank them by ad cost, right? And ad cost would be dollars spent against sales. So if I just take the dollars spent and divide it into the sales, I know in this case in BBB I get 5.7%. But again, it's only 6 leads. I'm not that worried about it. Whereas if I've got a $30,000 spend here against 400,000, right, 7.5%, and 350 leads, I'm really worried about that. That's a big component of what I do. Same thing with direct mail. I've got, I'm spending some money there. I've got a good ad cost. I got a lot of leads. I need to kind of start in those places. And, these things like, that generate 6 leads, and, we can worry about them later. Because we're not spending that much money and we're not getting that much return, right? So if we kind of, look at it from that standpoint and say, okay, here are the things that I need, right? The business can't run without them because they're big and they generate a lot of leads, and the leads are good cost, and I actually sell them. I ask these questions, right? Did I buy everything they had, right? And if I could do that more, if I could buy more of it, would I? Right? So if I've got something that's generating a 7% ad cost and I bought half of it last year, chances are if I buy the other half this year, I can double my spend and get twice as much business and keep that ad cost the same because it's predictable, right? Do I have more money this year? It always kind of starts with that. Am I trying to grow the business? And if you're trying to add $1 million to your business and your average ad cost is 5%, then you need to be thinking about spending another $50,000 on marketing. Right? And if you're doing another 50 grand on marketing, you got to figure out where to spend it. And I would suggest that a good way to spend it is, okay, where did I get the most leads? Where was the ad cost the lowest? And do they have more that I could buy? Right? Are there things on my list that could be cut? Right? And we looked at in the example earlier, there certainly were some things that didn't generate a lot of business. And the lesson that I always had in my mind as I was doing this was there's no risk. If you're cutting something that didn't work, that's risk-free. You can do that and put that money anywhere, and it's likely to be better because the thing you had it in before really didn't do very much. So I always kind of take that as an opportunity to say, okay, let me play around with some of this money. Let me test something, and I can see if I can find something that's much better than where I was. But that's a pretty risk-free exercise. So if you think about this as building blocks, and you build your budget around the things that worked, the things that you could buy more of, the things that generate sales and do that at a low lead cost and a low ad cost, the decisions start to make themselves, right? If I buy as much of the things that work as I can, right? So if I bought half of it last year and I really like the answer, I want to buy the other half. If I can buy more frequency, we used to do this in direct mail. There are a lot of direct mail envelopes and kind of magazines and things out there. And if I bought 6 of them, and they mail monthly, if I bought 6 and I liked the answer on the 6, I would try to buy the 12, right? Or maybe 10 because I might not buy December. But I would try to buy more frequency, more geography. How big is your marketplace, right? If you're focused right around your office and you're getting good results there, build it out, right? Stretch out a little bit, and you can spend more money in a predictable way by using the things that already worked for you close, and then add a little bit more away, and you can really take low risk by adding additional dollars, right? Then you go to the next thing on the list, right? Then the next best thing. Can I buy more, right? Can I buy more frequency? Can I buy more geography? And if you do that one at a time, this idea of stop when it doesn't make any more sense, right? Stop when you're either out of money, or when you start to get into places where the ad cost is starting to get up a little bit, you're over your number, you're not really feeling like it's comfortable anymore, stop, right? And make that your budget. And if you do that, there's this idea of rinse, repeat, right? If you do that annually, kind of, you do it now for 2019. And then, in December, you might know a little bit more about October and November, so kind of come back and do it, right? And then when you get into January and February, at the end of February, how did those 2 months go? Am I still on track? Do I feel like I'm still making those numbers, right? And when you spend the budget, stop, right? And if you constantly do that, where you're spending all the money on the things that generated the best return for you at the lowest cost per lead, if you do that, month in, month out, you'll always have the most efficient advertising budget that you could possibly have, right? And all along the way, you're aggressively tracking all of these leads and making sure that everything that goes into your system will have the right attribution on it, so that then next December when you come around, or next October, and you're getting ready to run the 2020 budget, you're trying to build that up, that you'll have the right information at your disposal to be able to make proper decisions, to make comfortable, accurate decisions on what you're doing. Okay, so measuring marketing obviously is the answer, right? And if you do that, then the decisions really start to make themselves. So that's the challenge that we see. And when we started this business back in 2009, the options that you see in front of you, these tech options that are out there and ways to do different things online, was a lot smaller than it is now. It's up to about 5,100 now. I think it was 550 in 2009. And every year they publish this thing, and they keep adding more and more to it. We're in this little box over here on the right. And it used to be very small. It was still hard, right? You still had a lot of decisions to make, and you had a lot of options, and it was difficult to have the knowledge about any one thing to kind of say, okay, I got to do that. But it's way worse now. It's 10 times as bad as it was then in terms of trying to figure this out. So our job and our initial, one of the reasons we did this company, and one of the reasons why we think it's important, is we help people to get through this and to make these decisions on what should I be doing, and how do I get the technology working for me. So we've created this cloud that brings in the right partners, right, the right data sources, the right people to work with, so that you can get the information that you need, you can have all the insights that you need to make the decisions that you need to make in your marketing, and that you can manage all of that in one place, basically on one password. When we first started this business, we did not have a cloud. There was no platform to work on. I would literally be doing this with 30 windows open, right? 30 browser windows, trying to figure out how it all fit together, right? How does my traffic relate to my click activity on Webmaster Tools and my pay-per-click over here? And it was really, really hard. And so we built the cloud originally for us, so that we could put all this stuff together and help our clients make decisions, help our clients understand what's going on in their digital footprint so they could spend money with us in a better way. And then after a while, it became obvious that not only was it valuable to us, but clients would get use out of it too. And we currently have something like 60% of our clients log into the cloud and take some action, do something in there every month. And so that's, we're proud of that. We think that's important, and we think that that's, if you're going to run a business like this and you're measuring leads and you're trying to understand how your money's getting spent, you need a tool like this that's going to be able to make that possible. So we bring in reviews, and you can understand how your review generation's going and how that's impacting your traffic, right? Website performance, directory listings, social media. Bring it all in one place. Now you can understand, I did A and I got B. And as long as you're able to connect A and B, you can make good marketing decisions and good future decisions for yourself, right? So what we try to do, and we talked about it a little bit here in the webinar, is to try to be in all the different places, right? Try to have a digital footprint that extends beyond just how's your website ranking and how much traffic you're getting. We want to make sure you're in maps. We want to make sure you're doing a little paid to kind of keep at the top of the page and compete with the people in your marketplace who are most important for you to be competing with. And that kind of putting all three of that together and managing that whole digital footprint and that whole presence is where you get the most ROI on the online side. And then those same principles happen on the offline side as well, with direct mail and everything else. And that kind of thinking and that whole way that you do it is what's important. So, Jenny?
Okay, thank you so much, Bob. Great presentation, and we do have some questions. But before we get into those, I want to ask everyone on the webinar one more time if you'd like a one-on-one call with a Surefire team member to see a demo of the Surefire Cloud. So the poll's open for you to pick a time, or like I said earlier, please email me to pick a time if those days don't work for you. Now we will get on to a couple questions, Bob. So first question here, Shiva asked, how do you make marketing spend decisions that ensure you have a mix of marketing that leads to both actions and those that build brand awareness?
Well, the way I think about that is I want to walk through how a customer interacts with a thing, right? So if I'm looking at something that doesn't have a call to action, let's say it's a directory listing, and I know that all I'm going to get there is presence, and a customer's going to see me in one way. I know kind of what I'm thinking about there versus, let's say I'm talking about a direct mail option where there's definitely a call to action there, and there's definitely a kind of how people use that is more to make decisions, right? Then I can kind of mix that up, right? I kind of think about that and, okay, what are my options? What do they look like? Where are my leads going to come from? Logically, right, based on how a customer interacts with a certain thing. And then some of this is, look, you're going to make a guess. You're going to try to kind of piece it all together in the best way that you know how, based on the experience that you have, having done this a number of times. And what happens is, over time, you get better and better at it, and you can kind of predict what will work based on experience that you've had in the past, and you can predict what won't work. So you focus yourself on the things that do. But there's no clear answer to it. It's really, you kind of make the best decisions you can based on what you can understand about those things, and then track them aggressively. And when they're not working, change them out.
Okay, great. And we got this question in yesterday's session, actually, and we're hearing it again today. So I think your perspective would be great, Bob. We do plenty of marketing, but we have never really put together a formal marketing strategy. Where should we start?
I think you start with a kind of goals and objectives piece. What are we trying to accomplish with marketing, right? In other words, am I comfortable? I know customers, for instance, who are very comfortable doing last year's business, right? If I did another $3 million next year that I did this year, that's fine with me, right? I'm good. So that's a that's a different kind of an approach to a marketing budget than somebody who says, I want to be a $6 million company next year, and I was 3 this year, right? And so it kind of starts with, what are you trying to accomplish, right? And then you build it up from, look, I know these things work. I've done them before. They're predictable, right? And then you get into that kind of geography and frequency question, and grow that as much as possible. And literally, I just build it from the ground up. And when I run out of money, I stop, right? Buy the most efficient things that I can and build it from the ground up. But again, it starts with, what am I trying to get done here? Do I want to be double where I am? Do I want to be, do I want to just be the same as I am, but maybe do different things? Maybe I want to change kind of where my jobs are or what kind of jobs I'm doing. Then you've got to start making things like geography decisions, or you've got to have different content in your ads, or look for different ways to achieve different things. But like I said, it starts with, put it on paper. Here's what I'm trying to get done, and then build a plan that feeds that.
Okay, great. Now, next question, Terry asks, do you think Facebook is a great place to advertise for a business who's on a tight budget?
The tight budget thing makes me think maybe not, because when you have a tight budget, you're looking for things that will generate leads, right? You need to feed the beast with leads first, and then when you're into Facebook, you're into kind of things that really, it's not as much lead generation, right? It's a little bit more like branding. It's inexpensive. Facebook is not expensive, but it's not really going to be the kind of thing where you say, okay, I need 15 leads, I'm definitely going to Facebook. I think you're much better, if you want to kind of feed the beast with leads, then you'd be thinking about Google ads, right? And kind of having a predictable budget to go against a lead cost, and managing to make sure that your leads are fine. And once you've achieved that, and once you have enough leads that you can depend on that to drive the business, then you can think about things like Facebook, which are more secondary, right? They're a little bit more branding, a little bit less focus on leads. They're not expensive, so you can get a lot of reach to them, right? You can get a lot of people knowing who you are, but you're not going to get as much straightforward appointment activity on a Facebook as you would for, say, for instance, Google Ads.
Okay, great answer. It looks like this is our last question of the day. What would you suggest for tracking our budget? Does a simple spreadsheet do, or are there tools out there that can help us?
There are tools that will help you, and we've had webinars with Market Sharp here, and Improve It 360, and Lead Perfection Lite, and all of these CRMs that do this. They allow you to put spending on the front end, and then as you open up lead records, right, new customers, new opportunities, it tracks them against those lead sources and gives you that kind of reporting that you're looking for. I strongly recommend that. If you're in a place where you're spending any kind of money at all, it's really, really valuable to have that. If you can't get there yet, you certainly want to start with a spreadsheet, but tracking it is where it begins, right? What will get better is what you track, right? And what you work on and think about every day, that's always going to get better. And so I recommend starting there, and then if you can do the CRM, that's obviously the next best thing.
Okay, awesome. And it looks like that does it for questions today. But before closing out, I want to remind you all that the final day of our Contractor Marketing Planning Bootcamp is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be talking about marketing tools that successful contractors like you use to gather and analyze their business numbers when they use to create their plans. So we'll be talking sort of to that last question there. So to log on, you'll use the same link you used to join today's webinar, but if you can't find that link again, please email marketing@surefirelocal.com, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. So a huge thanks to Bob and to all of you for taking the time out of your day to join us. I really hope you learned something new, and I look forward to seeing you online tomorrow. Please take a minute to fill out the survey at the end. Let us know how we did today, and if there are any topics you'd like to hear about in other future webinars. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
Thanks, folks. Talk to you later.